Hi there, Nava. Well, it's great to see you again. Um,
Hello, always good to see you.
yeah, we last spoke for Generation and your role in
Yes,
that. So
yes,
yeah,
yeah.
and well, Baby Reindeer. I watched it last week, and oh, it so got under my skin, and it's visceral and moving and funny, and I feel like I'm still digesting it and thinking about it in a way that I haven't about a piece of art that I've encountered in a really long time. So, what was your first reaction and your first thoughts as you encountered it, I guess, in screenplay form when you were first reading the series?
Hmm. I, it came in as an audition. And I think I only had the first episode and one scene to audition with. Um, and then for the second audition, then I got the whole series. So at that point, I was all in. I could not stop reading. I was so moved by Richard's vulnerability. Um, and it's the greatest gift to read a character like Teri who is so layered and unencumbered.
Mm.
You know, I could feel that she has this pulse that just emanates from her being, and I was really drawn to her, and I just couldn't put it down. I couldn't put it down. I think the same way that people are watching was what it was like for me to read it.
Yeah. Um, and in what ways did you really connect with Terry as a character, maybe as you were first reading or as you began to start playing her?
Mm. I think, the dynamic between Terry and Donny is one that's very familiar to me. So I kind of was able to get that very quickly. For me, it was actually more work to kind of figure out, well, what are the differentiating lines between me and Terry? And that's where I really feel the magic of acting happens is in that stretch between yourself and someone else. Um, and um, and so that was really fun for me to kind of figure out, well, who is this woman? And why is she the way she is? And um, she's just, I mean, I'm also like, I wish I was so witty. I wish I was as funny as Terry, I wish I was so sharp and yeah, I really had to kind of figure out, well, what has been different in her life that has made her who she is today.
Yeah. Yeah, and you mentioned that she's funny because I think the show, given the themes that it deals with, it's interesting that it's still such a funny show. Obviously, not every moment is, a laugh out loud funny moment. But what are your thoughts on that? The fact that there is a lot of humor in the series.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I think that it's just like real life. you know we go through every day and we don't necessarily know what is going to meet us, and I think the same is true for all the characters on the show. I mean, Richard is a comedian first and foremost. So I think that there was going to be comedy in the show, whether he wanted to or not. But I think that without the the lightness that feels like it is the kind of the spark, um, I think the show wouldn't work. I think it would be maybe they would just feel too far to try to reach. So I think it's perfect that it has that element of comedy.
And tell me a bit more about working with Richard, particularly given that the series is based on his own experiences.
Um, I mean, what a unique situation to be playing the love interest for somebody who is the creator, writer, showrunner, and star of this story that's based on his own real life, and I think deals with some really, really, really heavy topics. You know, we're talking about sexual abuse, we're talking about trauma, we're talking about shame. And so I really brought an awareness with me at all times of the reality, you know, which is that this is a very personal story, um, and ultimately this is a story told by a survivor about what he's experienced. And so I just wanted to make sure that I brought my best, and I wanted to make sure that whatever the story needed, that I could try to meet that requirement, you know. Um, and it meant a lot to me to have the honor of helping Richard tell this story. I really think it's so important for survivors to tell their own stories. I'm so glad that the world seems to be ready to have those conversations, um, and I tried to do my best, you know.
And it's rare that we hear men be so open about their emotional lives, I think, particularly in things that we see on screen, but perhaps in everyday life too. Um, and that we hear stories of survivor stories from men. What were your thoughts on that?
Mm. I mean, we live in a world that really encourages men to stay silent about their pain, about their trauma, and it creates a cycle of shame. Um, and I think that then other people end up being on the receiving end of that cycle of shame. So if we want to create a different world, we need to break that cycle. And I think that step one is breaking the silence. Um, and I hope that people can see that that's what this show is trying to do.
Yeah. And on that, thinking about Donny's shame, there's quite a striking scene that happens on the tube, on the underground subway, as we can call it here. People do it in the tube and the underground, um, where Donny's shame or really fear that he's going to be identified as being with a trans woman, being out on a date with a trans woman. Um, it gets to him to the point of that he gets off the train. And I think one of the things that I found striking about the scene, people are looking over, but they might be looking at anything. It's his perception. Um, and I feel like, in the writing and the as far as the audience's perspective, we're really with the character of Teri, and we haven't seen that so much in the depiction of trans characters. I would say, and certainly the things that I've watched. Was that something that struck you too about that scene and the overall kind of, I guess, writing of Teri too?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that Richard's writing really has a way of getting inside the minds of the other characters. Um, and so I had great material to work with, you know what I mean? And and I think that in that moment in the story, we're really seeing the ways that Donnie's shame has made him afraid to be seen, even by himself. Like, I don't think he wants to see himself. He doesn't want to look in the mirror because he's afraid of what he will see. And of course, as the story unfolds, we find out all the things that I think he's afraid to see from his past. But Teri, I think, has kind of can sense that, you know. I think that at that point in time, Teri is maybe thinking, well, I can show him the way. I'm not afraid to be seen. I've looked and it didn't scare me, you know? And and so I think it's heartbreaking then when she realizes that, well, she can try all she can be as strong as she is, and it still might not be enough to kind of break through the walls that he has built up. Um, and I think that's it's like you have to have that surge of hope that she has, and which then leads to the heartbreak of it.
And as you mentioned, this is a really layered character, Teri, and completely integral to the story. There aren't actually that many characters in the series, so Teri's one of the main characters. We also see, a trans woman who has a job. She has a great apartment. She's got a circle of friends. She's, having adventures in a way like living abroad in London. Um, and I mean, these are just things we expect like to be able to say about any character in a series, but I feel like unfortunately we haven't been able to describe a lot of trans characters in that way because often they're, solely characterized by, their identity. Yeah, so it shouldn't be something that I need to even sort of mention, but it is significant, I think, isn't it? Is it?
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that as the documentary Disclosure Trans Lives on Screen has shown us, the history of trans representation in film and television has been so severely limited, and in fact has often been intentionally dehumanizing. And part of that is stripping away all these other facets of trans people's lives, um, jobs, friends, intimate relationships, personality, um, we're real people, and we've always been here, and we're everywhere, and you can't take that away from us, you know? And I think that I really did feel so blessed to be able to play a character that felt fleshed out in that way.
Yeah. So, there's a traumatic scene with Jessica Gunning, who plays Martha, that happens in a pub, um, where Martha attacks Teri, and I wondered what that scene was like for you to create and approach.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, it's a very, very intense scene. I think that there's just raw emotion from everybody involved in that scene. Um, it's what I was most afraid of in taking on this role. I really didn't know if I could do it. Um, and um, and so what I learned is that I had to just focus on the emotional landscape that leads Teri to where she is, and that all of a sudden gets ripped off. And so what's underneath there? What's in the history? What's in the psyche, in the subconscious that gets exposed all of a sudden? So that when we finally filmed, I kind of just experienced it. I had to really allow myself to feel it. I had to allow myself to really be there. Um, and 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 so then I had to kind of come back out, you know. Um, that's the only way was that I knew that I was gonna be able to come back out. Um, yeah, I'm trying to even remember. It's like it's just like it all came at once when we were filming, but I know that one of the things that I really felt and kind of explored in that moment was Teri's fear of abandonment. As confident as she is, and as hopeful as she is, I think there is this deep fear that she'll never be good enough, and no one will ever stay. And so um I think that moment brings all of that up for her. Yeah.
Did you have any reservations about doing that scene at all? About there being depiction of a trans woman being attacked? I mean, when people see the whole thing, they'll realize it's completely integral to the story and to Donnie's, how he reacts to it. But yeah, it was just something I wondered.
Yeah, I think that this story has value because it's based on reality, you know? And I think that the way that it's told shows us so many different perspectives. And I think also that we get to see Teri over time. We're not only seeing her on that day. That's not her last scene. And then, oh, I wonder what happened to Teri after that. We actually get to see the emotional impact of violence like that. And I think that is meaningful storytelling. And as you said, when you take it as part of the whole story, you can see that it's integral to what this story is trying to communicate. So it just made sense to me. It all made sense to me. Yeah.
I saw somewhere that you'd said that a couple of years ago you'd like to work in London, maybe work in London for 6 months or something, and you kind of manifested that. You made that happen. Of course, with your experience and talent behind you, it didn't come out of nowhere. But yeah, so what was the experience like of being in London? It's a city. I'm in New York now, but I lived in London for 20 years. So how was your London experience?
I mostly would land and start work that same day sometimes, and then work every day and then fly back. So because I filmed in chunks. I wasn't there for the whole production. I was flying back and forth a lot. So I didn't get to experience enough of the city. I went out, I went to a pub once, I went to the museum. I got to see some parts of the city, but for the most part, my experience was working with the crew and Richard and Jess, and I think it was a wonderful way to meet London for the first time, and then hopefully it won't be the last time.
And last time we spoke, I asked you for your favorite piece of LGBTQ plus culture. So it could be TV series, music, film, art, theater, or a person who identifies as LGBTQ plus, someone or something that's had an impact on you. And last time you mentioned Her Story, which was created by Jen Richards and Laura Sack with Angelica Ross. And so I'd like to ask you the question again, but you can't say that again.
I know. I think that sort of. It's a series that comes from Canada, but it's available in the US too, and I think there's multiple seasons now. Wow. Like sort of is so funny. It's filled with heart. You're seeing a variety of different people and their different experiences, and it's like, it's a show created by a queer person, and I think it means a lot in terms of representation of trans and non-binary people. And it's also just really funny, and you also just really care about the characters, and it's also trying to say something. So I think that is an incredible work, and you know what, if y'all wanna put me on the next season to sort of you know where to find me.
I think the third season sadly was the last season,
No.
but who knows? Maybe they'll pick up with these characters. It's good that they know that you would be up for it if they return to it.
Yes, we'll have to do, well, for the next one they have to call
Yes.
me. Yeah.
And Baby Reindeer's been such a massive hit globally on Netflix, which is really, really exciting to see. Yet, what does it mean to you to know that such a large audience is, watching the show, reacting to it, and engaging with these themes.
I mean, it's beyond, I think, what any of us imagined. Um, and I am so grateful that people are receiving the show with such open hearts and the conversations that are happening. Um, you know, the the texts from people that I'm getting, from my neighbors and my dad's childhood friends and my old therapist, and it's clear that people are engaging with the series, and and it's all you can ever hope for as an artist, is for people to really receive it with their heart. Um, and I can only hope that that continues. And I'm so grateful for all of it. And I can't believe it. Truly, like I don't know. I don't know what else to say.
Well, Nava Mau, thanks so much, and great to speak to you again.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Have a great rest of your day.